am a fish. Yeah, I created a mod that transforms you into any Minecraft fish. Well, there are only 3 right now. So obviously this is the salmon, but I've also added the cod and the itty bitty little pufferfish. To make this fish difficulty a little more interesting, I've implemented a growth system, which you can kind of see here. My fish is much smaller than these other fishy guys, and obviously with size comes a caveat. The smaller you are, the less health and speed you'll have, and over time you'll grow larger, faster, and have more hearts. There's also some other cool little features like cauldrons with water refill your oxygen. Oh yeah, did I mention as a fish you can't breathe on land? I feel like that's pretty obvious. With all that exposition out of the way, I started my scaly adventure as a little baby cod. Luckily, I made it to the water just in time before I ran out of all my oxygen bubbles. And a really cool feature I like is how your eyes adjust to the water because I'm a fish. Anyways, the first step of every Minecraft playthrough is to get wood. Now, being a fish, shipwrecks seemed to be the best option, but in my 10 seconds of looking around, I gave up and found a tree that was conveniently close to the shoreline. This allowed me to quickly grab some logs while submerged, because as a fish, I mine faster underwater. And on land, well, it's very, very slow. The great thing about being a fish is that the ocean floor is extremely rich in resources. Iron, diamonds just sticking out everywhere. So, using my little fins, I mined out some iron and promptly fell to my death. Fortunately, I was able to recover my items and swim back to the safety of the open ocean. Or so I thought was safe. You see, now that I'm a fish, I also happen to be a very tasty treat for a certain type of bear. Yeah, polar bears. They now will actively seek you out and try to eat you. Sensing that was my cue to leave this place, I swam across a shipwreck. Inside was a buried treasure map and some valuable resources like iron and diamonds, but the important thing was the treasure map. Back in the 1.18 update, Mojang added water-breathing potions to buried treasure, with quite a high chance too. So I travelled to where the map led me and dug down to where I found the treasure which contained 2 water-breathing potions. Forget the diamond or the emeralds, water-breathing is what we want, for reasons you will see very soon. Actually, the iron was very useful too, because I made buckets and cauldrons for obvious reasons. You may notice I have 10 hearts now, which means I am a fully grown cod, almost twice the size as a regular cod in fact. And I noticed a small little bug where I would jitter or get stuck when my hitbox collided with the sides of blocks. A little annoying and scuffed, but nothing a little reconnecting would fix. Deeper in the ocean caves, I took out some mobs, watched a little skeleton duel, and picked up some free diamonds. This sort of started my journey of being a little greedy bottom feeder, but I must say, being a fish was quite relaxing.
Add some years, build some trust. You start to feel your eyes adjust when darkness rolls on you. Push on through. Push on.
After collecting what I felt was an adequate amount, I heard what sounded like a very large lava pool near me. Now, a quick little disclaimer, unfortunately I'm not goated when it comes to making nether portals in under 10 seconds, like your average speedrunner. So instead, I painstakingly mined 10 individual obsidian blocks. And yes, it was painstaking. I kept getting pushed around because my tiny fish brain was too stubborn to just make a proper enclosure. Eventually it clicked and I finally had enough for a portal. Also, just to give you guys an understanding of how scuffed I made this, I forgot to make sure the player stays as a fish when entering a new dimension. So imagine my surprise when I entered the portal and came out as... yeah, the regular player character. So with my oxygen dwindling, I rushed to transform back into my cod form and set my growth back to 100%. But I was now suffocating. I scrambled to get a cauldron for my inventory, but with my warped perception, I struggled to place it down. So I was forced to use a water-breathing potion. I managed to eventually find a fortress, but that took around 3 minutes, which means I'm out of water breathing. No biggie, I'll just place down a cauldron, right? Yeah, wrong. I'm too big to fit in the cauldron. So I'm forced to use my last water breathing potion and I had to make these next 3 minutes worth it. Luckily, like I said, we are already right outside a fortress, so I towered up and was immediately swarmed by wither skeletons. Seriously, why are there so many wither skeletons? Anyway, I collected enough blaze rods and managed to make it back to the portal before running out of water breathing. All round a success trip, but we would have to go back eventually for ender pearls. So I located a village and stocked up on bread and stole some beds for the end fight later. I also may have committed some cannibalism along the way, but we don't talk about that. Back at the portal area, I decided I didn't want to go through the embarrassment of being too large to fit in the cauldron, so I decided to game end myself to reset the growth back to 0. But this would also mean my health would be lower too. Now, with the ability to replenish my oxygen in the nether, I set out to find a bastion. And I managed to find what I believe is the bridge variant of the bastion, which has this blob of gold blocks. And apart from this one hoglin, it was completely free for me to steal, although the paranoia did linger. After collecting enough, I found a patch of piglins and strategically made it rain. Fortunately, it wasn't long until I got enough pearls. Looking back, this was a little risky only getting 12, but hey, I'm on limited time right now, which was evident in how I was just, and I mean just, small enough to fit in the cauldron. Thankfully, I was at the portal and I wouldn't need to rely on fitting in the cauldron anymore, as the overworld and the end don't evaporate water. With that said, I found the stronghold, surprisingly without losing any eyes. I filled in the portal, and I don't know if I was just locked in or full of confidence, but I didn't even set my spawn point or look at the coordinates, so I jumped in expecting to win. And yes, I had to retransform. Anyway, I made it up to the main platform, and my plan was to just swim up each pillar and blow up the crystal. I destroyed the remaining crystals and waited for the perch. And look, before you blame me in the comments, I was purely relying on memory from watching speedruns with the bed, explosion, dragon, killing. I'm improvising, okay? So after it destroyed my first attempt and tossed me aside humiliatingly, I realized I had to blow up the beds whilst it was coming down. So for the next perch, that's exactly what I did. Or what I tried to do. I was way too late and it just consumed my beds. Third time's a charm, and I managed to get the timing sort of right and take out most of its health before being tossed aside again. And then I saw my opportunity. The dragon was coming down for what would be the final perch of its life. This would be one small swim, no, one monumental swim for fish and one giant splash for fish kind.